I should. Great. That's it. 4 days. I'm 2 or 3 or 4.
Sure, guys. Sure, guys, we're ready. We're ready. All right, excellent. Everyone else is signed up. Perfect. Well, with that, I will call the September 2025 meeting of the Salem Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to order. My name is Keith Norris. I am the chair. We will start off with a roll call. Rick Hartwig, vice chair. Here. Alan Alexander.
Here.
Online, Mauricio Flores.
Here.
Zachary Hammerly. Not here. Al Holland.
Here.
Debbie Miller.
Here.
And Sigrid Olson. Not see either. That is a quorum. We will start off with the approval of our minutes from a July 10th, 2025 meeting. As a reminder, our August 2025 meeting was canceled. And so our most recent meeting was in July. Any motion to approve the minutes from July?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Rick, seconded by Mauricio. Discussion on those minutes from July, any changes or alterations needed? All right, all those approve of the motion approving those minutes, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Here's Sigrid.
We will note that
No, I'm here, guys. I'm here.
Sigrid has joined. All right.
I was in my classroom and we had to connect the 9/11 lesson. So now I'm in my car because they're using my computer. So sorry, I am here just in the nick of time.
No problem. Good to have you, Sigrid. All we've done is approve the minutes. So we are moving forward to public comment. For any comment not on any specific agenda items. And it looks like we have one sign up. Evan, you want to?
No, that's sorry.
Okay, that's right. I figured you were here on the agenda item. I was surprised. Okay, cool. Any other public comment? Not on specific agenda items? Excellent. We will move forward then with those agenda items. And the first one is the review of the seasonal no-mow restoration program in the Upper Grove of Bushes Pasture Park. We'll start off with staff presentation on that. Rob, I'll turn it over to you for that presentation.
Thank you. This is gonna be brief and then we'll be able to answer questions later after public comment. So at the August 25th City Council meeting, Councilor Nishioka moved to continue the seasonal no-mow / restoration program at the Upper Oak Grove at Bushes Pasture Park and to implement a modified mowing approach in the Southwest picnic and recreation area. After discussion at that City Council meeting, a substitute motion by Councilor Varney was approved, directing SPRAB to review the program and provide City Council with recommendations incorporating guidance provided in the park's cultural landscape management plan. So the issue before you today, this item has been referred to SPRAB and you're asked to review this program that's underway at the Bushes Pasture Park and to provide a recommendation to City Council. And again, this is related to, we have stopped mowing an area of the park and it's related to protecting and the long-term sustainability of Oregon white oaks in that area of the park. And we are using the CLMP, the Cultural Landscape Management Plan, as a resource guiding that decision that our operations staff made. When we get a little further into discussion, we do have Mylan Davis, our urban forester and parks operations manager here, and he can assist in answering questions like what exactly we're doing and any questions you have. I also have a slide deck that I presented to City Council back in August, and I can pull that up if you would like, and I can run through those slides as well. Whatever works for SPRAB, this is really referred to you by City Council, so it's not really staff that's bringing this to you, it's City Council. So I'm just here to support you the best I can. All staff's here to do the same.
Rob, before we go to public comment, can I have you do that slideshow presentation to give us, make sure we're all operating on a base level of understanding of the issue before us?
So the cultural resource management plan divides the park up into many management zones. And then it provides specific recommendations for each of those management zones. It also provides, I should back up a second, it provides an overall vision for the park and its four overall goals. And those are, those are kind of protect the natural resources, honor the past, but also, the park is supposed to be relevant into the future as a recreational resource for our community. So we're balancing these things that sometimes could be in conflict with each other. But then specifically for different management zones, there's a little bit more different focus in each area. And today we are talking about management area 13, which is the Upper Oak Grove. And even in there, we're talking about two sub-management areas, 13A and 13C. This isn't the area where we implemented a seasonal no-mow this year. It's a seasonal thing, so we do intend to mow it now in September once. And then that's pretty much it, I think, until next year, right? And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to reduce soil compaction. We're trying to recreate basically what you would think of as a woodland, like a forest environment. And it's change. And what Councilor Nishioka has heard from her constituents is that there's some concern about displacing picnicking and other historic recreational use. I believe that's really the focus of the discussion is how do we balance our change management with making sure we're not displacing the historic recreational use in the area. I will just highlight here that management area 13A and 13C are distinct in that very way. So management area 13A here is labeled as the Oak Refocus and Stabilization area, and 13C is the picnic and playground area. So it's honoring that past in that area, past recreational use, current recreational use in that area. So again, I kind of went over this, but here's some helpful photos. You can see kind of a photos from a few years ago. You can see what the condition was, just a few years ago. And this is, I think, is a spring photo. We haven't irrigated this area for some time, so the green is because it's springtime. And then here's a photo of kind of midsummer. The grass is starting to dry out. You can obviously see longer grass. We had, I would think it's fair to say that there have been less picnic tables in this management area, but there's not no picnic tables. There's just less picnic tables. Public safety so this is and Mylon is here and he can definitely chime in at any time. But when you're talking about recreating under oak trees, I think it's important that we talk about something called sudden limb drop. And that's just, as the slide says here, mature oak trees may drop large limbs without warning. And it's something that could be very tragic. We've had some history here in Salem in 2023. It wasn't a park property, but an oak tree fell. And it fell on a food cart, and someone in the food cart unfortunately passed away because of that. And then, I grew up in Southern California. My brother works for a park agency down there, and he was working in this park this summer, and tragedy struck there. Right, just a couple hundred yards from where he was, where a different species of oak, but it was another oak tree, lost a limb suddenly while a summer camp was taking place under it, and there were kids and adults doing crafts at a picnic table. So I think the other thing I'm going to say about this is Mylon can address kind of how hazard risk assessment is done with trees. So the heightened sensitivity to this topic is because we're inviting people to sit down at a table and spend a longer period of time than as opposed to, for example, walking through a path. That plays into how we manage risk in this way. Let's see here. So here's a little bit about the CLMP. As I said before, it sets a vision, and that vision kind of is expressed with these kind of bullet points here that the Salem community values. It's protection, enhancement of the oaks, the wildflowers, and Pringle Creek. It's supposed to be a place for natural exploration, active play and recreation, family gatherings, like picnicking, a sense of history, and areas for reflection. And just a little note that the CLMP is kind of a special document. We don't have these for all our parks. We have these for these two specific park units because they're cultural gems in our city. And so we may have these plans developed for other parks someday, but for right now, this is the only park we have a plan like this, a specific management plan that's focused on managing important resources sustainably into the long-term future. That's what the plan is really focused on. And managing for change. We know the landscape is going to change. The way that the community uses the park is going to change over time. I kind of went through some of this already, but I'm just focusing here. The issue is that we have a new no-mow area, and it's reducing the availability of shaded picnic areas. The proposed action from Councilor Nishioka's original motion was to identify some areas in that larger 13A, 13C area that we would mow and designate as kind of like picnic areas and have signage, and we would invite the public to kind of go to those spots. And I think her thought was that we would mow these pockets in our larger no-mow area to give access to these picnic areas. Like that's what I believe she was envisioning in her motion. And then staff, we're not opposed to this. We're very open to making adjustments. This is the first year we've done the no-mow. We expect to do it long-term. So we definitely think we can, we definitely hear that and we're happy to do that. We would recommend that we focus that on 13C specifically, because that's where picnicking has historically occurred.
I'll just mention while you had that slide, if we go back to 13B, we've been doing no-mow in that area over 5 years. So we've already sort of done a lot of the no-mow and or similar to Lower LaFell, where it has been a no-mow for as long as we can remember. We've been thinking about doing this for a few years, so we've had some ideas in place, and this isn't something that we just did all of a sudden.
Let's hold questions for now.
Okay. So I talked about balancing access and ecology. So it's kind of how we do that. We can maintain the no-mow benefits outside the larger area that we're talking about in Bush. We can find ways to protect oaks and saplings. So that's something we're really excited to see. If we're going to get acorns germinating, we're going to get that genetic organisms that are there now reproducing in the park. We're excited to see. So how could we protect those? So we want that to happen. We are very much focused on managing invasive species. We've talking about it, and we want to do it in a way that's consistent with our integrated pest management policy. So that'd be probably a lot of handwork, mechanical work. We're not really talking about using pesticides, and if we did, it would be in more of a spot treatment way.
Similar that we've been doing in 13B for the last.
Again, yeah, how we've been doing it in that other management area, the 13B. And then we want to maintain consistency with the goals and objectives of the CLMP. And this is a figure from the CLMP. And really, when you talk about what does stabilizing the oaks mean, we're just trying to, make it more like we have no further loss of natives, no expansion of weeds, that the trees that are there now, their health stabilize and they stop continuing to decline over the long term. Eventually, we want to get to we want to go that way on the spectrum. We want to improve the condition of the oak areas in the park. And I just want to we're not talking about controlled burn, but that is definitely in the world of what restoration would mean in this kind of landscape. In an oak savanna, fire is a tool that could be used for restoration, but we're not talking about controlled burns at this time. I just want to flag that. A little bit about what park staff has done. We created some signage. We put those signs out when we stopped mowing this spring. Several of those signs walked away immediately. One of our initial lessons learned for this year is that we need more signs and maybe a little bit more budget for signs. So we're aware already that we need to improve our signage next year, but I just want to acknowledge that we did start with some signage initially. And part of the councilor's motion, the initial motion was to provide additional signage, again, to designate those picnic areas that are going to be mowed versus the areas we are not mowing. And to eventually update park maps and digital resources. I have an asterisk there because to be completely honest, that we have limited resources, that it may not be so easy for us to do that like this. We would take us a little time to do that kind of thing. I also want to talk about potential capital improvements, or I did talk at council about potential capital improvements. if the value the community places on this area is picnicking and family gatherings, it would be great if we made it a more accessible space in the future. The CLMP suggests that we could look into the feasibility of resurrecting a playground that was developed in 1950 as a gift to Salem, to kind of bring that back to life, but that would require providing ADA access, because a playground is a facility that is regulated under the ADA. And so we have to provide an accessible route to it, and we have to bring it all up to standards. And so that we really are talking about a pretty big intensive capital project. Well, potentially we also be looking at picnic shelters, again, to attract more use as a strategy as well. So that's just an idea. We're talking about the CIP later in the agenda, like that. And then I did offer some suggestions on behalf of staff that night, and so we would like to modify, again, as I said before, what we're doing in 13C and continue what we're doing in 13A. We would like to long-term move toward more developed picnic areas as opposed to what I would call dispersed picnic areas. That's easier for us to manage developed picnic areas. We can be more, we can manage risk when it comes to things like sudden wind drop. And then I did go on a little bit more there on accessible improvements and also bringing back the playground. I kind of got ahead of myself on this slide. And I think that's all I had on my PowerPoint.
Great. Thanks, Rob. Mylan, I'll give you a chance. Any kind of further details you want to add from staff perspective or additional insights?
For us, I think the big part is just, like Rob's saying, protecting our valuable asset, which is the oak grove to us, and how we manage that over time, even like removing some of the existing trees that aren't oaks, that aren't doing that well in there. Some of the maples, some of the non-native species that we've identified in that area. Just finding a way to build soil in there because it's so compacted, and that came out of the CLMP and the Mission Street Park Conservancy has identified that. And so for us, taking time to figure out ways that we can create soil structure, create improved soils for those oak trees, and also, similar to what Rob said, have an opportunity to have seedlings start growing. As we do mow, we'll identify those new trees that are coming up and allow them to grow and thrive. We've planted some new oaks in there, but it would be really nice to have heritage seeds from the heritage oaks actually growing back and have a secondary forest in mind, because all those trees are so old, hundreds of years old, and we don't have that many trees that are, that we're thinking about the future and how we manage for the future. So for us, that also understanding that we want it to still be used. We don't want people not to use that, but just for find use in other ways. Picnic area, obviously, we identify that new. We didn't want people to stop using it. That wasn't our goal. So, currently those picnic tables are back in that area, probably like 7 of them as of today. And we do have some identified areas where we're putting down wood chips and things of that nature to have them in more specific places, but over time come up with a real plan for that. So
Great. You want to mention a couple things about Camas.
yeah, we had, so we did a project with Willamette University this summer where when the Camas seeds were ready, we collected a couple 100,000 Camas seeds from the lower park, and we're going to disperse those this fall as part of a volunteer project where we're doing Camas in the area where the grass is growing. So something we did that was a pretty cool project with Willamette University.
So Camas is a resource in the park that's of high value, and with the regular mowing we've done for many years, we've interrupted its life cycle. So we were actually surprised to see some of them come back immediately. They were kind of waiting on the ground, but we want to encourage that as we continue the no-mow.
And obviously wildlife benefits and pollinators and birds and nesting, ground nesting things that we also promote in the park.
Please be jotting down your questions. What we're going to do is I'm going to give Councilor Varney a chance to reflect on the council meeting as well, and then we'll go to public comment. And then we'll have a chance to ask questions of staff as a board.
Oh, go ahead.
I will add one more thing. I know there's been lots of questions about fire, and I do work with Cord Vonderhay, the deputy chief of operations and met with them multiple times, and they know what's happening in the park. And they're aware of that, and then we've cut boundaries around the edge of the park, and they have seen no concerns with fire hazards in the park. There's no real fuels in the park. It's tall grass at the moment and nothing else that's, the trees are limbed up high enough. And certainly if the fire department ever had a concern, we'll continue to meet with them, that would be something that we would take their recommendations very seriously and follow through with whatever they want to do. We've had multiple parks throughout the city. Any recommendations they have, we follow through with those.
Great. One more thing real quick. We also mowed shoulders on the paths within the park. We did that to kind of improve user comfortability, I would say, as they use the paths. So if you imagine, you have two groups, they all have dogs, they're walking their dogs on leash and they're passing each other. They may need a little bit more room to step off. So we did mow shoulders along the paths.
Counselor Varney, can you reflect on the meeting and the discussion happened there?
Well, briefly, I don't want to take up.
I would say, since it was your motion, I figured I'd give you a chance to speak.
Well, I mainly wanted to explain why I brought forth the substitute motion. When I learned about Councilor Nishioka's motion and reviewed the CLMP, and as you all know, my long role with the Parks Board, I felt it was really crucial that this advisory board, have input into this decision because you were part of the original plan, you know about park usage and recreation and development of plans. And I did not necessarily disagree with Councilor Nishioka's motion, but I felt it was really, really appropriate and important for you to have a voice in this. And so that you could provide recommendations for policy or whatever. And then in addition, we have other oak groves around in our other parks in the city as well. And so maybe in the future, you might start thinking about policy overall for how we're going to handle some of our other oak groves. Like Brush College Park, for instance, where we have an oak grove and picnic trees under it. And so that was all I really wanted to say, was that was the reason I brought this up at the meeting.
Thank you, Counselor. With that, we'll move to public comment. No one who signed up for public comment indicated which agenda item they are speaking to, but I assume all of you are speaking to this agenda item. All right, we'll just go in order then.
You think?
We'll start with Christine.
Am I supposed to go over there?
Up to the podium, please, and we'll give you each 3 minutes.
I'm gonna need about 4 times that long.
I'm sure you could use it. We're gonna limit folks to 3 minutes.
Right. I'm Mr. Chairman, members of the advisory board. It's a pleasure to see you all again. I am representing SCAN, the South Central Association with Neighbors today. Last night, SCAN's board met and voted on a resolution that had been presented by our Parks and Gardens Committee, of which I am also the chair. I provided everybody with a paper copy of it, and Mr. Hartwig has seen this work before in a very slightly different iteration. It's amazing to me hearing Ms. Romanek's presentation, how in line with staff recommendations, SCAN's recommendations are. And so I'm really glad to hear that. The first recommendation that we have is probably the most important, and that is that SCRAB should reaffirm its support of the cultural landscape management plan, including that portion that pertains to the southwest corner of the park. SCAN agrees with staff's recommendation that 13C is a traditional picnicking area and that a little mowing there to make access better for people, particularly those with mobility limitations, would not be out of line. In fact, it'd probably be a good idea. I myself walk through that area 3 or 4 times a week to do one thing or another. And sometimes the long grass isn't that easy for somebody who's already lived there 70 years. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to make it a little bit more accessible for people who need it. With regard to the other management areas, we did not adopt a recommendation for mowing in 13A or 13B. We also believe that picnicking and other low impact activities should be encouraged in 13C, and that's right out of the cultural landscape management plan. So we have no problem with that. I think I just want to say a little bit about the cultural landscape management plan. I mean, I know you all are used to dealing with park master plans. You see those all the time. But a cultural landscape management plan is a whole different breed of cat. It was thoroughly researched with hundreds of hours of research, conversations, collaborations, lots of stakeholders. If you look at the Appendix H that's in the Cultural Landscape Management Plan, you see a long list of people. So it deserves to be honored. And I really thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christine. Carol Snyder.
Hi, I'm Carol Snyder, and I'm speaking as a neighbor at Bush Park. You may know me as also the president of Salem Parks Foundation. I am not speaking for them. We've never discussed this, and we don't weigh in on a lot of policy issues anyway. But I do. I am pleased that I see a trend that there's going to be picnicking allowed and even encouraged, and the mowing would be important for it to be encouraged, because the picnic that goes on in that corner, and it's really quite wonderful all summer, but they're large multi-generational events. They're family reunions and graduation celebrations and quinceañeras, and it's so there's generally several picnic tables gathered together for many of the occasions there. And I'm not sure how that will work with the modified mowing anyway. But yes, some mowing so that people who have to push walkers or strollers or be pushed in wheelchairs can get to these family events is kind of important. A possible solution to lead on into the CIP is that perhaps some actual picnic shelters away from the trees in Bush Park would be a really good idea. And they could be reservable, because these events are important, and I'm sure people were putting together their guest list this year when they walked over there and found out that they really couldn't picnic in that corner. And you really can't unless you're really hale and hearty. So, but that it might be something that we could do, is to put a few picnic shelters that can accommodate several tables and make them reservable, so that Bush Park remains a place where people can gather and have picnics, because picnic is kind of a quintessential park activity, and we don't want to discourage it. And Bush Park is perfect, and it isn't just the neighbors that use it. People come from all over Salem to do their gatherings in Bush Park.
Great, thank you, Carol. Ellen.
Yeah, is it,
Evan.
did Ellen get before me?
Yes.
Oh, I was trying to be last, sorry. Go ahead.
Ellen Stevens, I'm on the Historic Preservation Parks and Garden Committee, and I walk in the park often. I was actually there this morning, and in that area, the little concerns, not a huge issue, but came to light all over the park in areas that park employees really don't notice because they're usually in their trucks. So they're on paved paths, but all over the park, there are social paths or man-made paths. And I'm aware in the last maybe 10 years, wow, they're just all over, cutting through especially in the lower part. So we like shortcuts. Probably the only thing I remember from Geometry 101 is that a straight line is the shortest point between, or shortest way between 2 points. So back to 13C, concerns me that people will create new social paths to get to the restroom. So the map's not here, but at the top of the Derby track is where that little white square was denoting the restroom. So people will, rather than get on the paved path, they will just take that shortcut to the restroom. So creating paths that don't really get cared for because sometimes when Tom Beatty was there, he used to put down the arcas. Now they've gravitated away from that to more of a stony surface. And people don't like walking on that unless it's pretty flat. So then those paths just get a little wider and wider on both sides to avoid the stone. So that's my concern, is the creation of new social paths. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. Christine Young.
Thanks for this opportunity. I'm speaking as a private citizen because I just joined the scan board and then this morning found out that I'm part of the historical thing. So I just have a question. So I haven't been able to look at the CLMP. And I'm just curious, has somebody done an inventory of the plants that are in the non-mowed areas? And is that in the CLMP or whatever it is? Who knows?
Go ahead.
Okay. I think there was a broad assessment of plant communities for the CLMP. To answer your specific question, I mean, staff have observed species in the park where staff is aware. And then this summer, one of the priorities of the park is Kringle Creek. And the CLMP talks about having a very comprehensive riparian assessment of Kringle Creek. And so that's something else we're working on right now. And so in that corridor, so the corridor where the creek is, we are developing a very specific list of the species in that area, but we haven't broadly done that across the whole park.
Not except for trees. There is a tree inventory.
And then there's the tree inventory, and the tree inventory across the park is not complete, but it's significant. It's almost there. Okay.
Well, I did go for a walk this morning also in the park and I noticed right over by where the stadium was gonna be expanded. And there's some long needle pine trees there. I saw 2 little oaks about this tall coming up under one of those trees. I thought that was fabulous. And the other thing, earlier in the summer, like at least a month and a half ago, I was walking and someone was doing the shoulder mowing. And he, as a mower, told me he thought it was, to protect people from being scratched or whatever, and foxtails from little doggies. And so that's what I'm really curious about, because I guess Bush Pasture Park was a pasture. And so I don't know, I know that horses were there because I had a friend whose mother rode horses. And they don't, process their seeds completely. And so things spring up, I'm sure you know this. So I'm just really interested in knowing what the plant inventory really is up there, because it would be really fabulous to have some real non-native seeds included, because I don't think expecting the earth just to do the non-native thing is going to really work. I think we need to help. That sounds like a wonderful project for a Willamette University student to do plant inventory. That's all I have. Thank you.
Evan, you're up now.
Thank you so much, Chair Norris members. I'm Evan West. I am the chair of the SCAN board, I didn't come with a prepared statement. I just wanted to affirm what Christine has said and what I expect Julia hopefully will say. I've just been very impressed with the hard work done by our board and Mission Street Parks Conservancy to create a recommendation that is based not just on wants and needs and opinions, but the high quality guiding document that is the CLMP. We've heard a lot from neighbors and other constituents. Oh, I think the park looks better this way. Oh, it would be great for me if the grass was not so tall so I could picnic more here. I absolutely understand all of that, but I'm really impressed by the plan currently in the works to yield to the recommendation of the CLMP, which for some of those management areas is that the oak trees are first priority. And we understand that particularly because sure, maybe the grass looks bad now, but can you imagine if the oak trees went away entirely? Would you still want a picnic there? Would you still be coming to the park there? I don't know. So basing all of our recommendations and all of the action here on something concrete, not just a matter of opinion, but the guiding documents that exist is really critical. And I thank you for your time in making sure that happens. I believe that's it. Just again, like I said, affirmation of the great work that our group has done and appreciation for you all. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Thanks, Evan. And Julia.
I'm Julia Battle. I'm chairman of the board of the Mission Street Parks Conservancy. And we support this park staff and all that they do. And we feel like they do an excellent job. And we're partners with them in Bush Park and try to help. And they get out on foot and see a lot of that park often. So they know it very well. I don't know if they have a official inventory, but I think if you talk to most of them, they would know a lot of the plants that are there. So we could talk to them about that. We also support the park in their continued implementation of the cultural management, landscape management plan. And we're glad that they're focusing on that. We support the addition of the Oak Savannah area in the southwest corner of the park while maintaining safe areas for continued picnicking. As partners with the park, we will continue to enhance and maintain the Oak Savannah area so that it becomes both environmentally and aesthetically pleasing. We recognize that changes take time to be fully implemented, and time needs to be given to the park staff to complete this plan for this area. So although everybody's just looking at right now, what does it look like? So we've got to have time till the wildflowers come back and the camas come back and make it really into an oak savanna. It'll be beautiful, and people will want to picnic in those areas to see all of that. So they'll be surrounded by more beauty rather than just grass. They'll be surrounded by something really unusual and different. So we have recommendations that we have turned in, complete recommendations that y'all will have a copy of. But we're glad that we're bringing this to Scrab, and I think that's where it should have been, and with the parks.
Great, Julia. Anyone else want to provide public comment on this issue? Okay. With completion of the public comment, then I will turn it over to my board members for thoughts, discussion, questions of staff about this particular issue. Al, I cut you off earlier. You gotta follow up on that.
I'm a bit at a loss for how the CLMP needs to be modified to comply with the neighborhood association's ideas of what needs to be happening. It seems to me they're all very consistent already.
Yes.
I don't see the conflict. But if we need to reaffirm to the city council that CLMP is something we need to continue supporting, that's fine, we can do that. But it seems, I'm not sure what we need to do that needs to be fixed. The question I did have, though, is probably from Mylan, is that can we hear a little bit more about benefits of no mow programs? And is the objective really to reduce some of the impact of soil compaction from traffic? And if that is the goal, then I can understand no mowing. People are going to be walking around less on no mowed grass. But people want to be walking around on the grass because they want to be picnicking out there. So it sounds in some ways that our plan is in conflict with what we want to do, but I'm not sure if that's true because picnicking isn't really that deadly. The art fair got really heavy traffic, and I understand why that was moved elsewhere. So I guess I just want some clarification on what we need to do if we're doing something wrong.
Miley, can I, add a supplement to that question? Sure. So the question being summarized, Al, I'm gonna summarize for you. That
Somebody has.
what is does the lack of foot traffic and mowing traffic, the goal of that is to reduce soil compaction, right? And you're clarifying that.
I
with-
understand that.
With Mylan of what's the benefit of that goal being achieved? So what do we see with reduced soil
Yeah.
compaction?
If we're reducing soil compaction by no mowing, which results in fewer people running through the park, what are we gonna do to restore that soil? I think
Yes,
that's
how-
one of
how
the
are we
things
gonna-
that you're looking for, but we're not gonna go out there and till up the soil or plant a bunch of worms, gophers, but I don't know, just not mowing is not gonna restore the soil, is
I
it?
think your worms and gophers might already be there, but, where it won't take too long to come there on, particularly if there's canvas involved. But I think, and Miley can clarify from, it's not just the foot traffic compaction, it's the compaction of the mower itself as well in the regular mowing. But Miley, my kind of add-on to that is, okay, we've been not mowing for 5 years in 13B. Have we been measuring the soil compaction? Have we seen any recovery of the soil there, of the, what would you label, one of the goals, like building the soil? So kind of along the same lines as Al's question, figured I'd jump onto that.
Sure, yeah, no, we've done no testing of soil compaction, it's just more of a field test.
Okay.
And over time, yeah, you can tell that the leaves dropping, the grass seeds, things remaining in place, you're obviously building duff over time, so it's something that takes time to do. What Julie was referencing, so for us, obviously not mowing. We're gonna mow now this year, end of the season, we're gonna mow it down, but we are gonna do techniques where it does leave grass clippings bigger than we've done in the past. So in the past, it's always been a mulching mower, and so everything's broken into really small pieces. Nothing retains in place, so now we're gonna start cutting the grass a little bit different, cutting it into like sort of not leaving it completely long, but cutting it into larger pieces, and that sort of remains in place. Then we're also gonna not take the leaves away every year. So that's a big part of what's gonna change too, is not sucking up the leaves and taking them to the dump or taking them to be recycled somewhere. So that's gonna remain in place. That's gonna be a big deal. Or creating soil structure out there. So the difference is you're asking if the picnic area will be different than the rest of that area we manage. So those will be two separate things. So we'll manage that picnic area completely different than we manage the rest of that oak area. So where we do have picnic areas, hopefully we're gonna identify some places, maybe they're even harder structures, handicap accessible, whatever that may be, that it's a different feel, and we'll manage the trees differently there because we are concerned. Really old oaks that are, some of them are starting to have brooding body diseases, and we're gonna identify more and more areas where it is good that we don't have, a lot of foot traffic. And we also are sort of encouraging some of I think the trails that are created by people to get through. That's kind of a beauty of that, leaving the grass talls. You do kind of have a more natural feel in that park area into a path that's sort of created by the people almost.
Just so the board, thank you, man. Just so the board's kind of clear on what I'm thinking the outcome of this is a letter to council, right? So the council's asked for thoughts and recommendations on this. And so a letter that kind of outlines, okay, here's what we understand the situation being, kind of our statement of findings, clarification of the question to kind of Al's point of what are we seeing as the crux of the issue? What our recommendation and recommended results are, and then recommendations for how staffing, what the actions staff and council need to take to get there. So those are kind of the 4 parts of a letter that I see, just think about how we frame our questions. Right.
Yeah, I just have a question. What kind of mowers do you use? The riding mowers when you do mow?
Yeah.
They're very heavy, aren't they?
We have quite a few mowers that are light impact though, with different tires that we use on some of the different mowers. It's very light impact, and actually foot traffic does a lot more compacting per square much than a mower would.
Because of the writing, where I think a push mower, even a non-powered, you know, one of the old ones that I think you probably get volunteers to do that, you know, if it made a difference. But, okay,
With a volunteer.
the question of this time of year, after no rain for so long, the ground is really hard.
Right.
Okay, now, does that make it easier on everything to mow in that situation than in the spring or the early summer when there's been a lot of rain and the ground is not hard? Is that maybe why you can mow, you said in September, which is this month, but
Yeah, we'll mow in September just because it's beyond the netting periods that have created and it was sort of before the rains come, correct? So when the rains do come, it's gonna do more compaction into the soil. So, but over time, hopefully that us building that soil up, it's, you know, we're not as worried about some of these issues.
okay. I have some other comments. Should I go ahead or?
I just have one to just.
Mauricio, go
For
first.
Buck mowing, in my opinion, the way I view the impact on compaction because of the mowing isn't the act of mowing. That's very minimal. Even now that they're reduced to one, if you were to increase it, you're really only talking about 3 or 4 mows a year on non-irrigated areas. So it's not that it's what it exposes the environment, right? You're gonna mow low, you're gonna encourage foot traffic. And that's what the benefit of not mowing is you're kind of discouraging a little bit of that open area, a lot of foot traffic, and that's where the compaction is mostly the getting impacted, it's the foot traffic. So the act of the mowing, I think, is not that, it's what the result of it.
Yeah.
The mowing.
Cool.
Thank you. And since it's in, I think generally my thought is, I think we've heard from the community's important stakeholders and that have really looked into this. And the plan in place with the CLMP is really impressive. I mean, just personally, as a representative of this board, kind of, I'm supportive and in favor of what's been thrown out. I'm curious to see of what it could look like to have a picnic area park. That seems to be the right move.
Then,
And my biggest concern is that any designated picnic area would be minimal and would be small. And I really like the idea of the developed area away from the trees that was brought up, especially with the cover on it. I don't know where the money's gonna come from, but I just feel like if we're going to do that pocket mowing that we talked about, that it should be a small, really designated area, maybe have the tables firm down in the ground so that they can't move them around to other areas.
Rick,
Yeah, first of all, I don't live in that part of town and I don't normally drive in that area except for on Liberty and Commercial. So the first time I heard about any of a controversy was when it was in the paper. And of course, then I had people asking me, since they knew I was on SPRAP, what's going on? What are you gonna do about it? And then some have even said to me, I voted for the levy and this is what I get. It's ugly, And I drove by there. I did drive by there the other day and it is, it looks like almost like an abandoned, park. And, so I'm going, okay. So attending a couple meetings, I've been educated, enough about what's going on. I think that, one thing that I would really push for, and who knows where the money would come from, would be a shelter for the large group gatherings. So that, and attach the tables in appropriate places so they can't be moved. Because there seems to be a problem of when somebody has a big gathering, they are just moving the tables all over the place and they want to be in the shade. And so, that's not a good situation. I think signage would be great. We need more signage. If you had a big permanent sign that said Savannah Oaks or whatever, is it Oak Savannah?
Savannah.
Okay, Oak Savannah, and then somewhere
if they are still interested, then somewhere where it tells you why, what are, Oak Savannah? So that they would understand, but my word, I drove by and I go, man, this is not the Bush Park that I remember. I remember it with, really nice areas. Of course, I remember the art fair when it was wonderful under the trees too. So I totally understand and I totally support, saving, one of our treasures. Even though I have 13 50-year-old oak trees on my short block that, are now pelting my cars with acorns and leaving dents. But I support that they are there and I support that, we want to keep them. I really think a shelter, like that you have in other parks, even a pavilion type shelter would be appropriate if you could find the right place for it. The playground that's in that area looks really run down. Maybe it isn't, but you can't see it well enough. But if that could be moved to a better area and then picnic tables in that area, that is not going to be a problem. I think that would be really appropriate.
Thank you, Rick. Other thoughts, comments, questions from the board? Rob, Mylan, one question I have is a little bit perhaps bigger picture. And it came up in some of the materials we had as part of our agenda packet, but the idea of a city park compared to a conservation area or one of our nature area parks. I think it's the designation. Is that the designation? Natural area. Thank you. No, that wasn't something right. Natural area parks. And what is the balance of that? Because while Bush's is unique and has the cultural resource management plan, or cultural landscape management plan, it is not designated as a natural area park. And in some of the discussions there, talking about creating a natural oak savanna, and creating a natural woodland. And I'm just curious about how the presence of those natural areas conflates or works within the park's system of kind of thinking about the management of these individual parks.
Yeah, I'll start. That's okay. Sure. Yeah, I would say, what a park is kind of nebulous in some way, right? I would say a lot of, as I communicate with the community through my job, I often hear that natural spaces in the urban environment is a value that a lot of people place on park property. So although we have a park classification called natural area, I would say that a lot of our parks have natural areas in them. So your standard neighborhood park has a natural area in it. It's pretty common in our park system. And that's kind of embedded in our park system in a sense. Many years ago, we had a management tool, a handbook where we identified like natural and sensitive resources in all our parks. That thing is out of date, really needs to be updated. I think staff would very much like to have the capacity and resources to do individual management plans for our natural areas in every park, but we just don't. I mean, we just don't have that. So I guess that's what I would say about it. I would say as we go into, looking at the park system plan, we might get into this a little bit more. We might identify nature spots as a thing that we value and is recognized as a value of our park system.
And I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. We have that a little bit in this plan, and that it has the sub-designation areas, but thinking about like Minto Brown, right, as a park has a designated conservation area as part of within that park, right, that clearly identifies separate management goals and priorities around it. And Bush's pasture is huge, and has the capability of having those having areas that have particular goals around them for wildlife and natural areas. And to me, this is an area where it's the plan perhaps that we have and the values that are on that, has retained more gray lines around it, in terms of what each, rather than kind of more strict
I think that-
boundaries around it, and that's what's producing conflict, right, is lack of clarity of what is the goal here, so.
I think that's good, and I think it's a living area for us, it's gonna change.
Yep.
I think, you know, that oak grove is special for not only Salem, but the Willamette Valley.
Right, right.
And so how we manage that's important, it's gonna change. And we're thinking about now, what's the best thing for us to do? For now, it's, let's fix the soil, but some of these trees are gonna start, they're so old, they're gonna start failing.
Yep.
And so we may manage a portion of that area where we protect only a portion and the other things start changing around it. So for now, we have what we have, it's historic. And we're trying to preserve that the best we can, but I think it's gonna change a lot. And, you know, as we add soil and as we add, or, you know, better quality areas for the trees, then we can also change how we, you know, use that space, I think, too. So it won't, I don't think it'll always be like the lower lapel is so natural. I think it can be managed similar to the plan of a playground there would obviously change things. A shelter there would change things.
Right.
You know, having all these things there can change all of that. So I think it's definitely an area that would change, and it's not a natural area, but we are focused on restoring the health of the oaks first.
Yeah, and I guess while I'm talking, I'm trying to draw black and white lines a little bit, I also like don't want to come across as like draw a line of like nature's here and we're here, like don't want to do that, because I agree, like the integration of that within, like that's part of the value and the beauty of that park, but just trying to think about how we're structured in our park system and under the kind of comprehensive plan, and how making sure we're doing that in a way that reduces the potential for these user conflicts and conflicting visions of what the goal actually is. In there. Alan, excuse me.
Was that me?
That is you. Go for it.
Okay, thank you so much. I've read through this material and I'll have to say up front, I've enjoyed for the last 20 years using that park with small groups, with family groups, and with church groups and things like that of different sizes. And it's a luxury I think we took for granted. And what made it so nice was the natural area that was encompassed in, and most of it involved eating. So there were picnics, but what both sides want to do, and even if there are two sides, I'm sure there are different views. It's laudable to save that natural environment as well as have recreation. The people who pay the taxes want to recreate, and some of the uses of the park, they see that, and they've enjoyed that for many years. So I'm sure there's a wise compromise somewhere and a thoughtful compromise. I wouldn't begin to suggest what it is, but I think it could happen. But my concern, though, is well, the idea about shelters, but the more shelters you build, the less natural area that park will look like. It'll look more like Riverfront Park or something like that. So the shelters certainly are nice, but boy, there's nothing nicer than picnic under those trees, and it has always been a luxury. I'm a bit concerned about trying to consolidate our picnic areas, our picnic tables into certain areas. That may be practical and it may work, but the groups that are there of different sizes and different focuses have enjoyed being able to enjoy the park and not interfere or interrupt with anybody else nearby. And if you start pushing the tables too close together or put too many of them, then you're going to get potential of conflicting groups. At least that has been my experience in the rest of my life. So it's going to take some wise decisions, whatever the city decides to do. And I encourage them, don't ever lose focus of the value of nature, particularly those oaks, as well as recognizing that, the people paying the bill like to recreate there too. And so hopefully we can find a wise decision.
Great, thank you, Alan. Rob, sorry,
One
Debbie,
really
go
quick
ahead.
thing. as we were talking, I'm thinking about how the place doesn't look good, how it looks messy and like it hasn't been cared for. But turning that into an educational opportunity and making it like, see how purposeful, like one of those boards where you go along and you walk along and you read about, why does this look so messy? And this is why, because this is how acorns become trees or something, and really making it clear how purposeful it is.
You just wish that, a nature area wasn't so nature.
Wow.
Yeah,
You wish.
I mean, it's kind of almost unfortunate that that area is just so visible, you know, as you're driving down High Street, you know, and it just says, whoa, this is our park. I remember picnicking there, and now look at it. You know, they don't understand the reasons and, you know, signage, information.
Rob. What is, and maybe Councilor Barney has thoughts on this, what's our timeline here in terms of council asked for guidance? Was there a timeline associated with that?
I'm gonna pitch this question, because Marlon, is there any urgency to, in the next like 2 or 3 months, that any in terms of your management? No, so I wanted to confirm that. No, so there is no urgency if SPRAB wanted to draft a letter, come back, discuss it next meeting, and then decide if they want to send to city council for, well, I think there's plenty of time.
Okay, Councilor Barney, does that make sense to you from council's perspective?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and I think that was some of the urgency originally behind Councilor Nishioka's, is because the September mowing was coming up and she wanted that discussion to come up in council originally. But it was already planned and it was okay to put things off
Okay.
so we could have this discussion.
And so in some ways, it's a little bit of a moot point at this stage in the year, because mowing's gonna happen.
And we've already mowed the picnic area, so the picnic area has been mowed,
So you've relieved that pressure.
the
Okay,
playground area's been mowed.
good.
I mean, by like January, February, we would wanna know.
You wanna be able to plan your year.
Because we have to plan our year,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
I just meant like, we're not looking to get a letter in the next week up to council. That's really what I
No.
was.
Cool.
Is this really an issue because people in the area see an unmowed park and they think it's been abandoned or otherwise not being cared for? But it is being cared for, they just need to be educated about why it's being managed the way it is.
Intentionality.
It seems to me that's the biggest thing,
Well, I think that
lack of understanding about the management plan.
combined with people wanna go to the picnic tables in there and it's not comfortable to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's being solved, I think, is with selective mowing
Could
properly.
be, yeah, and so I think part of our goal would be to make that a more formal recommendation
Yeah.
to council.
I-
So council hasn't adopted that,
Yeah.
right? Staff has indicated that's a potential solution. They haven't adopted.
I've got great faith in parks management people. They're doing what they need to do. It's just, we need to inform the citizens that's what needs to be done and it's being done right.
And part of our letter could emphasize that level of trust of the parks
Staff.
staff.
Do you need a motion to write that letter
I don't think I need a motion to draft the letter. What we'll do is we'll make sure this is on the agenda for a future, for next month as
Okay.
well, as to review a letter that I will draft between now and then.
Thank you.
Anybody wanna volunteer to assist with that?
I think you know our sentiments.
Okay, Debbie, you got it? Thank you. It's really a point person to make sure that I do it. That's really what I need.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, one of the things we haven't talked about is the cost for maintenance and the different ways. I mean, how much of a problem is it for the tables to be anchored or not anchored? How much of an additional cost is there to mow select small areas? You know, that's something we haven't talked about, and I would like to have that input as part
I
of the
think
decision making.
that's a good thought, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because that wasn't a comment or two of where in our packet of folks who are perceiving this as not necessarily intentional management and staff trying to save money on maintenance by and just letting it go and then hiding behind an ecological argument. kind of feel like the saving money argument is probably good enough in its own. But the cost element is good, and I can work with staff to maybe explore that as part of our letter drafting.
It's pretty clear.
Assuming there's no immediately available cost thoughts out of staff's head about it. It's fine. Okay, cool.
It seems pretty clear that there is, I don't know if you call it controversy or disagreement or misunderstandings among the association when there are a number of things. There are stating to neighbors conflicting view, others could be, others are not, some do not. So that there's clearly differences of opinion among people here about what should be done. I think a lot of it comes from lack of clarification about what the plan is and how it's being managed right.
Yeah.
So signage, communication with the association, these wonderful people talk to their friends too, I think is gonna clear up a lot of this and the management's gonna be good.
Great. Well, with that, we will plan to bring this forward again at the next meeting next month.
Do we need to vote on having you draft a letter?
I don't think so.
He's got it.
We'll do it. That'll be an item for us to vote on next month.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you all for the discussion. Thanks for the public comment. Appreciate all of the input. I have grossly mismanaged our agenda time. We are now 10 after 3. We have a very important discussion on the capital improvement program process by Jennifer and Rob.
I would say that this one could be as long or short as the board wants.
Great.
I'm gonna give a very,
Go for the short.
I'm gonna give a very, there's no slides, I'm just gonna give a very brief overview of this, of what CIP stands for and what the process is. And then I think just an opportunity for Jen and I just comment on what we call issues that we are looking at potentially finding funding match to as it comes to this year's capital improvement plan development.
That sounds good, Rob, if I can provide a bit of a preamble.
Yes.
Before you jump into that. So just for the board's awareness, this capital improvement program process has been an area of inquiry and interest for the board over the past several of years in terms of trying to find a way to appropriately increase our engagement in it as it helps steer the implementation of park. I'm not calling them master plans, what are we calling them now?
Development.
Park development plans, and the implementation of those, and kind of helping guide staff's prioritization and implementation of these capital projects. So we haven't, I would say, found a perfect solution yet in terms of like where is the best time and opportunity for SPRAB to be involved in this process. But we continue to bring it forward at various steps along the process to keep SPRAB at least informed as to where it is. So that's kind of what's some of the history behind some of these discussions.
Great.
Take it away.
Thanks. So the capital improvement plan is a document the city council approves every year as part of the budget process, essentially. It has essentially an annual process to develop it every year. So let me back up to say it's a 5-year plan. So we update it every year, but it lays out projects that the city anticipates needing to spend significant funding on, and that significant is defined as over $100,000. To develop or to redevelop capital assets. So that includes streets, it includes the airport, it includes sewer, water, it includes parks. And so as the annual process starts, which is at this time of year, there's committees for each one of those lines of kind of city services. And so there's a park CIP committee, it's a staff committee, and we're gonna begin meeting soon. And we're going to look at all project needs that are out there. We call them issues. So initially we call them issues. And we're gonna go through a process of seeing if we can match issues to likely funding sources. That's kind of one of the first steps. So you can say, for example, there's an issue, we need a picnic shelter at Bush. That's great, but do we have a funding source to match to it or an expected funding source to match to it? And so for those projects that we do anticipate funding being available for, we then score those projects. and we're trying to make it as administrative process, so that objective criteria. But we consider things like the impact to the level of service to the community of a project, its impact on maintenance, its ability to be funded with grant funds, its ability to attract tourism. There's these criteria we consider as we score these projects. And then as we get into kind of the holiday season, we'll be actually sitting down and looking at kind of the projects and their scores, the issues and their scores, and then programming funds to them now that would then be the staff's recommended capital improvement plan. And then throughout the kind of the spring, it will go through review. Typically SPRAB gets a presentation, budget committee starts meeting and they review it. And ultimately it goes to city council for approval right about the time the city budget is adopted. Jen, did I get that pretty good? All right.
Could you repeat that, please?
So I think what I want to emphasize is that as we start this kind of really getting into it, if SPRAB, anyone can suggest an issue. There's even a portal on the website that I could share, we could share with you all, that anyone in the community can suggest an idea. So SPRAB certainly can. And so we have a couple, and that's what we want to talk about today is what's on our minds. But if there is something you wanted us to really look at, see if there was some funding opportunity for it, and potentially we could score it and get it in the CIP. Now, remember, it's a 5-year plan, so being in the CIP, it could be near 5, it could be, depending on urgency and how it scores, it may not be like tomorrow, but we can just get it in that plan.
Yeah, couple things. First of all, what are we, a year into the livability levy?
We're in year 3.
There are 3.
Yes.
Okay, so what happens after year 5? Are there any plans for trying to get those, the parks, the library and the 50/50?
Oh, the recent bond.
That's
Oh,
what I was
sorry.
like, wait.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I think it's not 2 months, it's not too,
We're
not
like
too
2 months
early
in.
to figure out how that, where we're gonna come up with money after that time. And do we try to get it back into the general budget? Cause it's, cause I'm fearful we're gonna get to the end of that and we won't be any money for anything, and we won't have ability to do that.
So Rick, and the reason they respond with the bond is because the bond is what's funding the capital projects. The livability levy is just funding the day-to-day operations maintenance. So very different funding stream and level. And so the operating budgetary concerns with the levy in 5 years are not relevant totally to
Well, it doesn't,
the
the levy is not a source that would be used in these CIP
Right,
projects
correct.
of things, so it's two separate
Two
funding
different
storms that, one doesn't really inform the other in that sense.
Yeah,
So,
well, we still need to, I think about what's gonna happen after the livability levy.
well, 100%, yes, yes.
It's not, I think we'll have to do early
later.
to talk about
We've
it.
got a vested
Secondly,
interest in that, yeah.
secondly, it seems like that every year there's like 3 parks that are looked at for improvements. And it seems like one south, one central, one north, which was Sumter, Morningside, and I don't know what the third one was, Livingston, I don't know, whatever. We didn't seem to have any input on which are parks that would be. It looks like it's gonna be 3 more. I live in South Salem. I know of some parks that really could use some help. I didn't think that Sumter needed that much help at all. The tennis court was still playable, even though the fence had some holes in it that we put our bags in front of, but it was still okay. But there are a couple other parks there that the tennis courts are just absolutely, and sports courts were actually trash. You couldn't use them. And there's, so can we get some input into what is selected?
Yeah, two things. One is, so all those projects that you described, the sport court reconstructions, those are the bond funded projects.
Right.
So there's a very set list of projects in the bond. those projects were identified in 2021 by a city council steering committee. And it was rapid. It was very quickly done. There was an effort to make a certain date for the election or for the ballot measure. So it was done very rapidly, but there was a public process that this council committee had. Staff provided data we had at the time, and that informed this list of projects. I think, I'm sitting here, so I could definitely reflect back and say, yes, we could have done a better job. And so I think we're thinking about that in the future, but those are what the voters voted on, and so those are the projects. However, the other thing I want to share is that the bond did include these 10 playground replacements, and we got through the riverfront playground next year will be number 3. So we still have 7 to go. We are going to take a fresh look at the condition of our playgrounds, and we may come back to SPAB, and we would go to the bond oversight committee and maybe suggest try to save money on those 7 so we can do an 11th playground or maybe potentially change what playgrounds we're doing. And so that's something we're going to be doing in, I'd say, next year or so. Assessing condition of the so we don't the sport court projects are done. We're actually in your packet, we're wrapping them up. The 5 that are funded, they're done. There's no more funding for sport court projects in the bond. There are some other projects coming up in the bond next year. We're going to be investing in McKay Park. There are restrooms in the bond that are out in the later years, the 10-year delivery window. We were talking about these restrooms at Bush. They're slated for replacement in the bond. There's restrooms to be replaced at Wallace. There's a new restroom going into Northgate Park. There are these other projects, but there was, and I'm rambling now, but my last thought here is that the bond, there was intention that people, they go to the parks, they see the parks. So by delivering park projects sooner in the 10-year window, there would be more visibility of the investments occurring in the community. And that was an intentional act that the city made. And so you are seeing a lot of those park projects kind of happening at the beginning of the 10-year period.
Rob, did you talk about how those bond projects relate then to the, so can the CIP include those sport courts? Even though they're not part of the bond, but through other funding streams, could we address those sport courts?
They could if
Yes.
the threshold. You have to
So
do that.
now we're to the point where, yes, that's what he's saying, is now's the opportunity to provide input into that CIP.
Yeah, you could even strive them for pickleball if you wanted.
Probably a different debate, but.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. Sorry, Jen, I think I was.
No, I was just gonna piggyback on what Rob said is also not, which is 100% true, what you were talking about, kind of front loading parks projects because of the visibility and kind of getting some of the use out. And also the design process for some of those projects was much shorter than some of these other projects. And so it also allowed for that process to be more on the front end versus some of these projects on the front end.
If you could compare a park project to like Gilcrest, the urban upgrade that's happening there, it takes many years to plan and design and acquire right away for a project like that. I think our projects go kind of slow, but they're much faster compared to those kind of transportation projects.
Where does that leave us on the CIP discussion at this
So
particular moment?
so let's get to, so I think what I'd like to highlight is that I anticipate a continuance of an intentional effort to instead of doing lots of development plans and then waiting to develop parks for many years, we are really focusing on taking the funds we have, which is predominantly system development charges to expand our park system, and focusing them on the parks that are already identified or the projects that are already identified in the CIP. So I do anticipate that we'll be going predominantly through that pattern again this year. We're not going to be adding a lot new. We're going to be kind of stretching out what's already in there, and so that we can fully fund those projects to a reasonable level as a strategy to ultimately in the long term reduce the time between when we do a development plan and the community sees some of that plan actually implemented. So that is but there are some other exceptions that I do want to talk about.
And I think that just from my perspective, like that is, I've loved that effort over the past couple of years. I think that is great because there's some of these plans that I know we've had to essentially redo because it's been 15, 20 years since they were done and before weren't able to implement any of it before it needed to be redone. Mauricio.
It's a question for staff. Do you feel like there's enough issues in the queue right now to evaluate? Or, I mean, we don't want to discourage, more opinions from the communities or neighborhood associations, but just to get a sense of where we're at with the volume of issues that are getting evaluated to allocate some funds. I ask because of the next topic, well, not but we're liaisons to neighborhood associations, right? And how much do we want to have those discussions and encourage, feeding some more issues to you?
Do you want to go first?
No, I was gonna say, I think it's always important to capsulate and denote what those issues are. And so putting them in the CIP and think they don't get lost over time, right? So they're in there, and then as opportunities arise, it's available for us to kind of resurface. It doesn't hurt to do that, even if it's not in the active portion of the CIP. The other thing I think I referenced when you're talking about utilization of SDCs, and obviously we're supportive of that, is some of these projects that come up are not SDC eligible. And so we do have to look for other funding streams to move the projects forward, because SDCs are not an option for them. And there's issues that we have in the parks that will never, as SDCs are currently, the methodology would never be eligible for SDCs. And so those projects, because of the extent and the cost involved, we theoretically would not have opportunity to move them forward without being looking for creative ways to address them.
New grant opportunities,
Right.
right? Like we're using
Grants or funding
Riverfront's got a
stream.
grant.
And depending on the location, there's some opportunities for transient occupancy tax dollars to be used. And we've done that, and we've captured that for a variety of projects over the years. The caveat is, as everybody knows in the budget process, those dollars are precious, right? There's a lot of interest in those. And so there can't be a reliance on, even if it's a TOT eligible park, on saying, let's fund it through TOT. That may or may not happen depending on what other requests are being made for TOT dollars.
I'll add that what is and isn't eligible for SDC investment is a pretty complicated subject. And but to summarize it briefly, there's a methodology that the city has, and that connects what we collect the funds for and what they should be spent on, and then it actually sets the fee we charge. I'm not going to get into that, but to make it simple for us, the two things you know, there's something called a 309 list, and this is it's basically an eligibility list. City council can amend the list at any time. However, if a park is not identified on the park's 309 list, we are legally not allowed to spend system development charges at that park. So that's one. If there's an eligibility list, it is or it is not. So for example, Gear Park is on the eligibility list. We're doing this conversion with artificial turf there. System development charges are helping to pay for that, because we're creating a situation where more people can use the existing fields for different sports for longer periods of time. That's great. We love that. We're already thinking about, what about Wallace Marine Park? Wallace Marine Park is not on the 309 list. So we would take city council taking an action to add it if we wanted to pursue that. So until that happens, we can't match SDCs to that park for anything. So that's one thing I want to flag.
SDCs mean
System development charges.
Charged to developers when they develop new neighborhoods.
And the last thing I want to highlight is, so system development charges are to expand capacity, right? So they cannot, in no situation, no matter what, can be used to replace something and turn it back exactly the way it was. We have to be making it more useful to serve more of our residents.
Debbie.
I'm always an advocate for Bailey Ridge Park because I live there, and it's been a long time that it's been sitting there not being developed. And so I don't know if that's a 309 or if it's not a 309, but getting something simple in there, like a nicer picnic area or a little bit of natural playground or something to make it more park-like would be nice. I know they're gonna put the paths in, that's already done.
Yes.
Another thing, I don't know if this is eligible, but more bike racks. We were talking about increasing the ratio of bike to car, or whatever for parks. And I think more bike racks would be helpful. There's no bike racks there. Not that people really bike there very much.
I just interject. I mean, those are bike racks, things like that are perfect opportunities for spiff. program, you know, I mean, those are just, you know,
It's a little
kinds of
small, it's
kinds of
100,000.
thing. Yeah, so it wouldn't be something that would be generated through the CIP regardless, but it's an opportunity certainly for SPIF projects.
Right, you're right, yeah. And the other thing was the shelters, at Bush Park. I think that would really be a good idea to.
Rob, with the CIP, she said it's a 5-year plan. And so every year, projects are identified and laid out on that 5-year plan. The year 1 projects are what are addressed next year. But then next year, when you go through the CIP, you'll reevaluate all of those projects that are in years 2, 3, 4, and 5. And rescore them relative to the new projects that are also there, just to make sure they align and prioritization is still.
That is correct. And I'll also say that so initially, we don't always fund an entire project in 1 year. So we do an initial amount of funding, we start the design process, and then we get a cost estimate from our design team and say, you would expect this to cost this much. We go, oh, and then we would have to then add more.
Every
It
time
never happens that we have extra money.
Every time he said he does that.
So there's often a situation where we would have to add additional funds or reduce the scope that we're delivering. Yeah.
Okay. What more do you want out of this discussion?
I want to highlight 2 things. We will be going to city council for a new mid-year project. So we're basically circumnavigating the CIP process. And I want to make the board aware of that. It has come to our,
Now ignored.
not completely, but I think I imagine there'll be support. I referenced the 10 playground projects in the bond. One of them is this relatively small playground at Minto Brown Island Park next to the reservable shelter. The Parks Development Plan calls for that to be a nature play area. And I've looked at the cost of developing a nature playground. It's typically substantially less expensive than a manufactured equipment playground. It also doesn't last as long. If you use a bunch of wood, it rots, it goes away. So this doesn't stay up, but the capital project doesn't need the full $600,000 that is earmarked for it. And so park staff went to the bond oversight committee this month, and we asked them to support diverting some of those funds to do something really urgent. Because at Bush's Pasture Park, we have the Crooked House Playground, where we have a failing playground safety surface. The surfacing of the playground is failing. It's a rubber tile system, and they are separating and they're uplifting and they're becoming a safety hazard. And so we're going to be going to city council to ask them to create a new project and to divert some of those bond funds to allow us to just replace that playground surfacing. And so that's one thing. And that's the theme for what staff we're at this point looking at in terms of CIP projects, are those kind of like taking care of what we have situations. We have one that I think we're still scratching our heads on, and that's failing pedestrian bridges in our park system. We had to remove a bridge in Woodmansee a year ago because it was unsafe. And we are having a hard time identifying funding to replace it. And that is, I just, so that's just, I just kind of share you like where we're at today. So this is, we have a called creative option that we've identified with our engineering staff, that we would reuse a gangway that it's basically a ramp that would connect down to a fishing pier. We have an extra that we aren't using. As the idea is we could retrofit it to be the bridge. That still has costs in it, structural engineering costs and other costs that create basically a $30,000 to $50,000 project. We don't have $30,000 to $50,000, unfortunately, for that project. And then that's
cost to just build a new bridge.
Oh, you don't want to know.
I'm going there. Yeah. So if you want like the long-term sustainable solution that we've done in other recent parks, engineering has given us a cost estimate of $800,000.
Oh my God.
So this is, and then for that and the usefulness of that cost estimate is we may be talking to our legislative delegation to see if maybe there's possibly getting some higher level government funding for that.
I know where that bridge is in You just put some stones on that place there, you can walk over.
Nature playground.
Yeah.
It's a natural area, right?
Some of the bridges in our parks have been built by the Oregon Army National Guard, the 1249th Engineer Battalion. What's the future of them helping?
And that's essentially what I want to flag, that I'm very concerned about that. I just want to share, those are rotting away, they're failing, they're getting to be at the end of their useful life. And what we're seeing that there's an astronomical price tag to replace them. And so I'm just sharing, that's what we're seeing.
Oh, thank you letter to the 1249th might be source. But we're glad that you helped us for as long as you did.
They've all retired.
And I think we'll continue to look at this to see if we can find like kit bridges that, you buy a bridge is basically a kit that comes with the structural engineering already done. I think we're gonna look into that more. We're gonna continue to look at it, but I want to flag this as an issue that's emerging in our park system.
Why, I just noticed the plaques on a couple of our bridges from the 1249th. I'm not kidding, they built them. I'm curious about the history and why they got involved in building city of Salem bridges.
I don't know.
I don't know. I know.
Is there any hope for the future of them doing more?
I think we've had park staff relatively recently reached out to them and they don't do that anymore.
Oh, that's a shame. They're great bridges, the ones that Brush College had them there.
Okay. Good to know.
And again, the reason these cost so much is we have to bring them up to all the modern standards. That's why. We need structural engineering, you need to think about accessibility, and so that's why these price tags are so huge.
Engineering costs.
Engineering costs are no small thing.
Okay.
So that's a little depressing, but that was my own.
You can build one thing.
A
2-0.
request. I've always been fascinated by SDCs and things. Understanding more about how that works. Could we see what the 309 list is?
Yeah.
By that I mean, can you send it to us?
Yes.
We don't
Yes,
look at it
yes.
right now. Thank you. And if there is related, easily transferable information about SDCs,
What I think.
account balances and things.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah, we did that.
It's easily transferable. I don't want to like.
But one of the things that we'll do is we'll point you to a page on the city's website where you can find the 309 list for all of the sewer, but parks is there. It's just PDF that will open up. And then it's also, if you need some reading to put you to bed at night, you can find our SDC methodology document.
That's what it is.
Yes.
That's on the website?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, if you can point us, that's really what I'm kind of asking for, is those sort of things.
How and when do we offer suggestions for CIP projects issues?
You could just
Now,
voice them to us, or you could fill out a form online.
Okay. Well, I'm still very anxiously comparing our bicycle infrastructure along the river with Eugene's, and it's sad. Because I lived in Eugene 8 years and I got very attached to riding bikes along the river and all over town, and I just can't do that here. I'm very interested in trying to extend our bike path on both sides of the river. And looking at what are the possibilities. I think the first thing that I need to do is to try to find out what would be the routing possibilities between Union Street Bridge and Kaiser Rapids. That would be my first want, is to find out what kind of routing would be possible. I know it's not going to be along the river because there's so much private property there, but I'd like to explore that possibility. And there are others. I mean, we've got a decent path that you can ride a bike to Independence without being in traffic all the way. But the River Road route south is not really that great. So I don't know, I'm just interested in getting those things considered and where we can improve. I think the first thing is that route from Union Street to Kaiser Rapids. There are others too.
Since we're just beginning the transportation system management planning and that sort of thing is to increase our bike network. Okay.
Which makes sense, because to your point of private lands, like that would go beyond parks.
Yeah.
And so really looking at the city's transportation.
Yeah,
plan.
it's not a parks
And if
issue
you're,
as much
and if
as
you're going to Kaiser Rapids, now you're talking
different cities.
intergovernmental
Yeah,
relations.
it's a significant project that is complicated by many different factors.
That would be, that'd be cool. Sure. Have a system to get up to.
It's
Kaiser
been done in
Rapids.
other places.
Yeah.
It's probably possible.
Isn't there a meeting on Wednesday about that, next Wednesday?
Transportation. So
Yeah, with Juliana talking about like in the transportation safety plan. I thought there was a meeting next.
I'll have to look. In the regional scenario planning, that's the first thing, and then we
I have
got,
to look at my email.
I know, there's so many
So I
different.
was saying, Mickey has get through tomorrow's list of meetings. so-
Okay.
On a totally different subject, but since Mylan is here, what's the situation with that Emerald, what is it?
Emerald Ash Borer.
Yeah.
Let's close out CIP first, and then we can go to other things, because we want to get through park tour as well. So
I'm not sure if it's a capital improvement. I've got an improvement that needs to happen at Brush College Park. For several years, there's been a big hole in the middle of the lawn that's about 2 feet deep, and I intercepted an employee once and got a traffic cone put in, so people won't fall in. It's about deep enough and in an open area enough, you would break a leg. It's probably a caved in drain pipe that was abandoned sometime in the past, but there are 1 or 2 holes that I really think are a risk. And the cone disappeared, so it's the whole exposed again. I'd like to get it filled or replaced or otherwise safety somehow. That's not a capital improvement thing, but it's a maintenance issue that I think should be addressed.
I agree, not capital improvement, but I also agree it's a big hole. I walked by with my 3-year-old the other day, and that's a big hole. It's
And then there's water down there.
Yeah, Rush's College Park. You're talking, it's
It's about
around the corner as you kind of go up the hill.
It's about 100 yards into the park from
Yeah.
the shelter.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that that park was improved with a power pole on the shelter because the underground power supply failed and the power supply had to be replaced. Renewed. It's done. Now the shelter is workable again.
All right, we're gonna close that out. Rob's gonna send us more information, particularly also include in that, if you would, the form online to direct us that way. Park tour. We have, we would like to confirm a date for park tour in, I think we were originally looking at September, October. Did you have a proposed date in our packet that I'm forgetting? No.
I have
Okay.
an issue. I'm having my hip replaced on the 13th of October. So if it doesn't happen before the 13th of October, I cannot be involved until probably November.
Okay. So we should have it on the 14th then.
The 13th. I'll bring my own water.
Staff, is there, we're looking during the week, is there a particular time, a particular day of the week that would be best on a staff side of things?
I'm not really,
Just not a Monday.
not a Monday, slight preference for a Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which staff you talking about?
Any and all staff that would be involved.
Yeah, our next grab meeting is on the 9th of October.
Friday, October 3rd is a day that looks relatively clear.
It is a day.
Yeah, it is a day. I just, you know, it's
All day.
I think we want to make sure there's a you know, most if not all the members are available. I think that,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that we want to see a good response to the tour. I think that's what's most important to us.
I don't know.
Third works.
What hours are you looking at in the day?
Generally, I'd say that 8 to 4, maybe 8 to 4.
So
And not 8 to 4, but in that range.
Yeah. Yeah.
in an effort to not terribly extend the time of our meeting here, If we're looking at October, that is several weeks out, are we open to doodle polling Fridays in October?
That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
That's a good
Fridays
idea.
aren't real good for me.
Fridays in October, anybody morally opposed to Fridays?
Typically open for me.
Okay,
It's doable, I guess.
well, let's, Rob, sorry to put a doodle poll on you, but Rob, if you can send out a doodle poll, to all of us, plus that way we get, Zachary as well. Somebody else missing, I think it was Zachary, in there for Fridays, although I know his teaching schedule, like, will allow it.
Yeah, I can't make it either, but that's okay. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
For Fridays, yeah, it'd be hard for you to.
Friday's hard for me.
Fridays, and if maybe there's another selection of other days
Bonus of others there.
that
Yeah.
would be available, that'll help us. We'll look at probably, I think last time it was like a 4-ish hour,
Yeah, about
3-ish hour.
3
Yeah.
hours.
About three,
That's what I knew it wasn't the whole
about
day.
three, yeah. I think.
3-ish
Make
hour.
the time.
3-hour tour.
Yeah.
3-hour tour or so to cover a few things, and I know we had a kind of slated topic of agendas from last time.
Looking at the minutes from the last meeting, Riverfront for playground renovations, electrical upgrades and ODOT bridge impacts. Gear to look at construction progress, McKay Park to look at the next year's bond project. Hoover Park, First Futsal Court, and then Morningside, because it's, there's 2 bond projects there. But we're open to going anywhere.
And so the general thought had been ongoing bond projects, and touring those around, the parks. Does anybody have any, other suggestions for us to consider as we craft the itinerary? Okay. We will move forward with that general intent then, and Rick and I can talk with staff to, hone in that agenda, so. Look for that schedule and the doodle poll for availability, in October to come shortly.
Earlier.
Counselor,
No.
all right, no updates.
I know, I don't want to take up your time.
Well, and I
Okay.
know you provided updates earlier, but,
Yeah.
about the discussion.
No, the
Anything more?
folks might be interested in, because it's a hot topic, the safety and livability downtown, and there's the work session on it is Wednesday evening.
Okay,
Okay, so that might
Excellent.
be of interest.
Wednesday evening, thank you very much. Board member updates? Anything? Debbie, go for it.
I have 2 things. Just the climate action plan letter that was presented to the climate action plan committee. It was, it's gonna move forward to city council. We did that a month ago or so. I'm also doing the Highland Neighborhood Association tonight. I made a little 6-minute slide presentation about SPIF grants, and I wanted to also talk to you about some of the neighborhood updates, specific to their parks. And then, I was at Swan already, and we did some flyers and informational stuff at National Night Out.
Great. Thank you, Debbie.
Can I just piggy on, at the climate action plan committee, after your presentation, one of the city councilors asked that the SRAS letter be actually forwarded to city council as an information report at one of their upcoming meetings. And so I expect that will be a meeting in October.
Great. Thank you. Other board member updates?
I had a group of 20 girls out at Woodmansey Park a few days ago, and we continued with tree measuring. There are some huge trees in that park, but the kids were just delightful. And we actually went through flashlights through the park at night. Some of the trees are approaching 300 years old. But the neat part about it is after we measured about 6 or 7 trees, asked the kids to eyeball. These are firs mainly. And I said, just kind of eyeball the tree and let's estimate. And so many of the kids were dead on. They'd go 200 years and we'd clock in at about 185 or 230. It was really neat to see how they looked at trees in different ways. These are our future kids and taxpayers, and so many of them are not going to parks as teens. They're dropping off. Maybe they go to the parks as adults, maybe they go as little kids. But they could not believe that we had these huge trees in a natural area right next to their school. That's all.
Excellent. Thanks, Ingrid. Other updates, Rick?
Obviously, I've taken care of my responsibility with SCAN. Because they were all here today. But I have two more, and Rob, are you going to give us handouts on?
Just ask, and we'll get them for you. Member Miller has some on my desk. I hand her after these.
I guess I got my neighborhood meeting.
Yeah, I think it's connections, yes.
Okay.
Rob can provide. Okay, if requested, but specifically requested. All right. Information reports from the written Parks and Rec Division report. Now's the time for your EAB question,
Oh,
your Emerald Dashboard.
yeah. Mylan, can you let us know what's happening with the dreaded bug? Sure.
Yeah, and as recently as this week, it was found in Portland. For the first time in East Portland, so. But we are actively, managing city right-of-way trees, some park trees primarily, street trees. We've identified 1,200 that we're going to retain through injections. So it will be every 3 years, we will inject the basal part, the base of the tree with ivermectin benzoate and protect it against emerald ash borer, which, you know, after the influx of it comes and the pressure lightens and we can go to maybe less injecting, but for now it's gonna be every 3 years. And so because emerald ash borer is identified in the Pudding River north of Salem.
Right.
We started injecting all the trees in North Salem. So all the ash trees are identified as healthy and viable trees that we want to keep, and especially in low income and low canopy areas. We injected those first. So started in North Salem and working our way down to Center Street as kind of our stopping point this year. And then in the spring, we'll inject the other 600 trees. And so then in another 2 years, we'll do that. But some of the parks we identified in the northern parks will retain ash trees in those parks. But yeah, all riparian areas are going to be extremely affected by emerald ash borer in any of our riparian areas. It's heavily populated with ash. So you'll see a lot of dying dead. Yeah, Oregon ash is a really heavily focused and riparian, sort of likes wet feet a little bit. So it does, yeah, it's that's gonna affect a lot of stream habitat. Climate, yeah.
And but like you said, it's a few years out in terms of the visualizing the impact.
We don't know. The visually, yes.
Visually, right.
We had 15 traps up this year. We put a trap up 30 feet in the tree. It's just a glue trap, and we monitored those the last 3 years. We haven't found any in Salem city limits, but like I said, they used the same exact trap that we have, and they found it in East Portland. They found it in the Pudding River inside Marion County. I think there's 5 counties now in Oregon that have identified EAB.
Just want to know how
Appreciate it.
effective it is. How effective are the injections?
Very effective.
Very effective.
Very effective. Yeah, we can even do it. If we can find the beetle in the tree and the tree is still healthy, we can inject it immediately if the tree is still in leaf.
How many traps did you have around Salem?
Sorry?
How many traps did you have around Salem for testing?
15, I think. Yeah, we just took those down and went through all of them.
On the topic of bugs and Oregon white oak, I've noticed some strange damage or die-off down in the Albany, Corvallis, and not Salem. But it just seems that now there seems to be no new pests and new issues that just are coming into the area. And so there's this strange thing going on with Oregon white oaks in that region right now. I don't know if that is.
Mediterranean oak borer, so we've worked with ODA, ODF, we've had traps for those up in Salem as well, nothing yet, but we're monitoring multiple.
Yeah, that's another one.
Multiple pests for trees
Preventing
and
that.
we are working closely with both organizations in Oregon and do the best we can to manage those.
Other questions or thoughts on the information report?
I have one extra. Please. I'm just gonna very quickly, I'm gonna share my screen here. On the city's homepage, there's a news article here at the bottom. You know, if you get to the main page and just scroll down under news, applications welcome for Salem Livability Levy Oversight Committee. I'm just gonna highlight the applications are being accepted through September 26th. And there's a 1 seat at large, and then they're looking for 1 seat to represent Center 50 Plus, Parks and Recreation, and Salem Public Library. So that may be of interest to the board members. I just wanted to flag that.
Thank you.
You don't sound like I do.
It's a brand new one. To oversee the budget. Other new business. Next. Our next meeting is in 1 month, October. We'll look to bring a letter, draft letter, reviewing our discussion today on Bush's Pasture Park mowing. To that for board consideration. With that, we will adjourn. September.